So I like that quote to start this session because it served me very well, either in taking over schools, in starting schools. I've had the privilege of being in schools during induction week where I'll spend some time. The school that I'm taking over, we've done new school induction, new teacher induction this week. We'll do returnings next week. I'm even going to be in a few different schools as I wind my time down with Sarasa on a full-time basis. And I find that this is a great quote to start those induction weeks. If we think about that induction week and what it looks like, oftentimes it's coming off of an inspection or coming off of an action plan that we worked all summer on, or coming off those wonderful words called SEF, or wonderful initials called SEF or SEF. And it often involves change, that flip of the switch. We were doing this, it's now time to do this. I'm going to focus a little bit more, and I like doing it this way because I feel like returning teachers especially, but schools that I'm able to go in from from year to year, the transition is where we run into the trouble. The flip of the switch, we've done it this way, now we're going to do it this way. That seems to be, okay, well, I guess we're changing. It's then that transition that change affects, and that process. So maybe it's a procedural change and getting used to a new procedure. We're doing some changes like in this school as we work on well-being. I say this school, in American Gulf School in Sharjah, as we work on well-being of teachers, I've instituted a change in the email and communication rule. And so there'll be no communications after 5 p.m. until 5 a.m. the next day. Thinking about what that looks like in your work-home balance. Well, that's a big change, right? That's a very big flip of the switch, because a lot of us, me included, we like to go home, maybe we take a rest, and then we sit down and do a lot of work. And sometimes that involves emails or sharing of lesson plans. I'm seeing more and more WhatsApps even. And then we often forget, oh, wait, there's a new procedure or there's a new policy. So it's that transition. And so the way that the transition, in my opinion, and I've seen it work in multiple schools, it's interesting. I was talking to a few of my staff, and we were talking about all the schools that we've been in, either through working or consulting or inspection. And I'm getting like, you know, I've been in 4 schools, and I've been in 3 schools, and I've been in 9 schools. I did mine. I've been in 139 schools in my career, counting inspection, counting accreditation, counting consulting, counting being a principal, counting being a teacher. And so when I say the things that I see that I think work, I carry a little bit of experience with that. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be exactly that way, but I know it's the transition when we get into starting the year that works. So I want everyone to have a thought for a minute. As a teacher, remember back in your days. Now, some of us might still be teaching a little bit still. I'm going to teach a little physics in my new school. 1, because we need a physics teacher, but 2, because I love the classroom and I love teaching. So everyone remember back, if you're a leader only, when you were a teacher. If you're a teacher, this will be easy. And then the next part of that is, what were some of the ways that you motivated your students? So let's take a minute, type them in chat if you would like. What are some ways you motivated your kids? And then I'll pull up the top 4 that I see around the world. So what are the ways as a teacher we motivate students? We'll take 1 minute, type them in chat, have a think. All right, I like that. Creating an interest, telling them real world stories. If you have ever been with me in a classroom, you know that I do that. I make connections to things that they do. Oh, there's a good one from Dr. Frank. Set a challenge with them. Inspire them to work in teams. It's like, you should be teaching this, Dr. Frank. You don't need me to teach this. You've just taken one of my next slides. Good job with that. Also creating an interest in not just your subject, but maybe how your subject connects to other subjects. So I like that and why it's important. Wonderful answer on setting their own goals, right? Verbal praise is one we do all the time. Doing the tasks with them. I know when I first started teaching chemistry about 30 years ago or so, 28 years ago in the teaching of chemistry, I would do the practicals with them, not demonstrate them. Like I would grab one of them. All right, you're my partner today. What do we do? Tell me what to do. So you're doing the things with them. Oh, very good. Thank you, Ms. Pallavi. Sync the subjects, right? We want to use data. We want to know where are they coming from. Feedback. Oh, that's the bad word of inspection. Feedback, feedback, feedback. We love that, don't we? That's a really good one as well. Being physically in the moment with them, right? Being collaborative with them, not just in their group maybe, but really a technique that I know that works with the younger students. And I remember even back in my days, when I would ask the question, I would be sitting in my small desk as a second grader, and my teacher would be over the top of me answering my question. Well, that made me very uncomfortable. So we know the techniques now are you can squat down or pull up a small chair, like if you're teaching grade 2, and sit beside them at their eye level. And so you're in their eye level answering your questions. Great way to make them feel comfortable and motivated. So role modeling is good as well. I'm going to give you the big 4 that I see teachers use the most in motivating students. The first one is money. Now, it's not necessarily money, but it's if everyone does this, we'll have a pizza party on Friday, right? So it's not necessarily the money, but it is motivating them by giving them something that they can achieve. Now, even not as a teacher, my mother and father used to motivate me with money. The more A's I made, the bigger my allowance was. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a teacher. I like this next one as well. Giving them a day off. You know what? If everybody does this, we'll have free day Friday. Nobody has to do any work in my class on Friday. Remember those days? Yeah, as a student. Now, I hope your teacher let you have some free days. I loved them. To be truthful, it was probably the only time I ever studied, when I knew there was a reward or an award with it. This is a good one. Marks, grades, right? If everyone gets questions 2 through 12 right, because those are the hard ones, if all of us get those correct, I'll give everybody 2 points on their total mark or their total grade. So, or maybe sometimes you let them drop a grade. If everybody turns in all 10 quizzes this term, I'll let you drop your lowest grade. Remember those days, right? Your teachers would motivate you, and that's a good way to extend that motivation because it says across the term. I see teachers using this. Now, what the students don't know is that the teachers were going to drop the lowest grade anyway, right? So it's not tricking them, but it is enticing them and motivating this one. And then I put this one in. I don't see it as much anymore, but when I was growing up, it was movie day, right? You know what, boys and girls, you've behaved so well this week. We're going to watch a movie today. And I remember as a principal walking by classrooms going, why is everybody showing movies? Are we not learning? And then I would ask the question, oh, well, they did this and they achieved this, so we let them have a movie this way. I don't mind that. But I think those are just some ways that in our teacher days, at least, we motivated kids. Now I'm going to flip it on you. Now, this was just kind of a memory. You know how we teach those lessons, that recall stuff? That's what I did there, if you hadn't noticed that. I'm sneaky. Now you got to put your leader hat back on. Now you're a leader. So now as a leader, what do you currently do to motivate your teachers? Same thing in the chat. What are some ways as leaders that you motivate students with? Sorry, you motivate teachers with? Ah, very good. Thank you for that, George. Engage them. Let them be a part of the decision-making process. And not just one, the whole process. Not just, hey, what do you think? Okay, thanks. Let them be a part of that process. Why you made that decision. To be honest, I did a lot of that today and this morning as we were looking at start times and start days, and we bring new students back on the first 2 days and staggered starts. And then when we walk through the process, instead of, hey, I'm thinking about bringing new students on a Monday and then returning students on a Tuesday. Do you like that or not? And if they say they like that, you go on. That's not making them a part of the process. Good one from Miss Renu. Appreciate them. Very good. Uplift their ideas. Again, my goodness. Promote them. That's really a good one. We like promotions because when you have promotions, what comes with a promotion? Money. Right? Teachers, they're motivated by money. We like money. And for the gentleman on the call, our wives like money too. So we know how it works, right? This is one that I find interesting. A day off. So a lot of times we aren't maybe able to give a teacher an increment or give a teacher a raise because of how the budgets work, and then how, there's this amount to go around, and most of the time those only come either with a promotion. Sometimes they don't even come with a promotion. A lot of times I will say, you know what, for every teacher, if you have perfect attendance for term 1, I'll give you 1 paid day off in term 2. And we have a little more discretion at being able to do that in certain leadership roles. This is a good one as well. Positive mindset with them. Like you said, involving them into the decisions, allowing them to see and understand that as a leader, someone just said it actually. Thank you, Shireen. You're also a teacher, right? You're also teaching them. It's part of that process. It's part of that process. I just said it. It is continuously allowing them to learn alongside you. The biggest mistakes I made in my career as a leader or as a principal is where I became the know-it-all. Or I started like pointing at my name tag. And I would say, principal, of course I know. And I would just impart knowledge, and I would just speak, and I never let any come in. Well, what do we call that these days? We call that teacher talk. Have you heard that before? I know some of you have, because I've said it to you, and we've had conversations about it, and we've watched lessons with each other talking about that teacher has too much teacher talk. As a leader, you can have too much leader talk also, right? So that nurturing becomes important, as Miss Neelafar says. Miss Gina, hi, Miss Gina, I didn't know you were here. Rethinking the practices, not just making the change and saying, is it, all right, that's good, done, go. Doing it, monitoring it for a week, seeing how it goes, that's the transition, but motivating them to do it. It's interesting, Miss Gina's on this call, and it reminded me, we did something like this in one of the schools where we worked in, where we were creating hands-on learning lab environments for the students in KG. And we built it in a mind that we wanted, but we really motivated the teachers by doing 2 things: giving us your thoughts in the beginning, trying them with your kids. Like we even went so far as to have the kids go on a little snake in and around the room as they're observing sink float items. I think that's right. And then after a week of trying it, we came back together. What worked, what didn't? All right, let's do that again. And then eventually we got to where the students were in a consistent habit, and we were seeing amazing responses from our students. But you know what else we saw? We had we had 100% buy-in from the teachers because they were a part of the process. It doesn't always have to make them part of the decision, but where you can help them with the process, it makes what? Makes the transition easier. So nurturing them, making them a part of that. I can't remember who said, letting them be alongside you and learn with you. This is the one where I see when I do mentor leaders, and I don't do it as much as I used to, but I still have a few NPQH soon-to-be leaders, is how do we keep it going strong? What are some ways that we do that? Well, I think everyone would agree, consistency. How many of you have gotten that policy from HR or gotten that policy from the principal in June and induction, or I'm sorry, August and induction? Now, for my CBSE friends, that's a different month, so apologies there. And then 1 month later, you never hear of it again. And it's never used again. And it never comes up again. It's not practiced. Or, so that happens, and I was a bad leader. I did it myself. All right. I'll tell you a secret that I do with my resources. So when I buy a resource, when they come for induction, I write into their contract, they also have to come in October. They also have to come in December. They also have to come in March. So it's just as much the responsibility of the resource provider to keep this momentum or motivation strong so that it's consistently used. And then I think consistently applied, too often we apply one part of that rule to this person and one part of that rule to this person. You want to kill a teacher motivation quickly? That's the best way. This one's a fun one for me. Teamwork, right? What's teamwork? What's collaboration? Someone go to Google teamwork. And then someone else go to Google and Google collaboration and copy and paste it and put it in the chat for me. Because as we talk, actually, I'm going to let you do that, and then I'm going to make the connection. I've already Googled it, so I think you should come up the same. Teamwork or collaboration really helps with motivation. It's why we know when we have new teachers, we give them a buddy teacher as they're new to the school, or assign them a mentor teacher. We know that teamwork, when it's time to, just today, make a decision on what does the KG streamline look like in staggered start versus what does it look like for the bigger kids to come in staggered start. And I literally just sat back in my chair and let the discussions happen. And then all of a sudden I looked up and my KG my KG director has the blue dry erase pen on my dry erase marker, and she's writing, and then she's connecting lines and connecting dots. And then my well-being coordinator, he said, okay, yeah, don't forget. Sorry, he's well-being director. Don't forget, remember that. And then she's like, oh, yes. And then all of a sudden it was done. And all I did was ask a question. And they solved the problem. They collaborated through teamwork. Now they are motivated to make that work. If it had just been me, it would have been a flip of the switch of change. And then the transition into that change, a parent would have invariably asked the question, why are we doing this? Why do we do the same as last year? If they weren't a part of the discussion, sometimes you might hear, oh, I don't know, it was the principal's decision. I've even said that before early in my career. So allowing them to be a part of that team, allowing them to be with you in those decisions, or making them on their own, or maybe giving you choices, and then you make a final decision. And I think I'll end with setting the expectation. You know, even if we go back to how we did it with kids, and I'm going to give you I'm just going to give you some activities on the next few slides to do this expectation piece and the positive thinking piece. But you had to set the expectation far enough in advance where it would make a difference on their actions or their behavior, right? So you couldn't say on Thursday morning as you're handing out your physics quiz, all right, now if everybody makes 92 or above, tomorrow will be movie day. You got to tell them that on Monday or maybe last Thursday. So they've got time to be a part of that, be a part of that studying and meeting that expectation. So you got to give enough advance warning. If you tell me as you're handing it out, I'm motivated to do it, but I'm not very happy. So again, just another way to keep motivation strong. I'm going to give you a few activities that I've done in the past in some schools that I've been in that worked well to continue motivation and continue getting your team as a part of you. And I'm going to do it with a few examples. And the examples are specific to both positive mindset and setting expectation. All right. So I think I'll give you a picture. And this picture is a full-size photo, obviously, of my staff and my team. Now, the bus drivers are in there. The SEN teachers are in there. The bus assistants and teaching assistants are in there, not just my teachers, because making them feel a part of the team. Now, of course, this costs money because you got to pay for the photo. And then I had my PA put that photo on a 11 by 14. I signed it, and this was my gift to them at their December break. And it was a thank you for a really good job, well done. I let them go a day early, good motivation, and I told them at the beginning, this is what we're going to do. Now, this was 11 years ago. I received this message about, I think it was 9 years ago. So one of the gentlemen in this photo made this statement. Just want you to know, and sent me the picture, by the way. I have my picture up here on my wall, but this was his picture. And he said, listen, this was the turning point in my career. He was still motivated by that picture every time he saw it. So even a year later. So yes, that's a simple gift, but it is also a motivational gift to remind them they're still part of the team and we're still collaborating. Now, I want everyone to fast forward to Monday. This gentleman is now becoming a leader in a first-time leader in his school. Or sorry, last year he was a first-time leader in his school. And this is what he did 10 years later. So it made such an impact on him and such an impact on the people that he worked with, and they still keep together. He did that. That's keeping motivated. Now, the reason I do this activity is if you can get them to have buy-in as a team, and yes, this does cost a little money, so you got a budget and you got to make sure you have resources to either make the copies or the color copies, because some schools don't allow color copies or you can't. This is just an example. As a first-time leader, he was able to keep his team collaborating and motivating because they always felt like they were a team, and that he gave them a photo with his signature to remind them we're all on this team together. Small little things, small little trinkets sometimes. I'm going to give you another example here in a second. But this is one way that I've just seen the impact in the last years by one person. And then his comment is, I learned this from you, and I did it with my team. So you can't tell me it didn't have impact, and you can't tell me it didn't have positive impact. So that's one. Birthday cards. Now, one or two of you on this call have done this, so shh, you can't give out my secret, but I'll give it out anyway. One of the things that I do when I take over, actually the beginning of every year, when all the staff, and it's not the very first activity I do, that's the next one, but I give markers and crayons and slides and not slides, glue stick, scissors, all your craft stuff, right? And I make every staff member make a birthday card. No names on it, no dates on it, no happy birthday in July, whatever. Just make a nice birthday card. You can fold it in half, you can do whatever. And then I keep it in the principal's office. In one school, I think I had a treasure chest because we were the pirates. I always had a drawer. And then when it was one of the teachers' birthday, I would have them come to my office they would grab a birthday card. They couldn't open it yet. And then we would go to the breakout room, whatever it was, and everybody would yell happy birthday as we walked in the room. Now, it got to the point, actually, it wasn't a surprise, right? Because once you came in and you knew it was your birthday and you got the card, you're like, oh boy, here I go, right? And it kept the motivation and teamwork and the idea of everybody was on the same team for all year. Because guess what? You might have the chance to having a birthday every day. And it was just a wonderful celebration. And then what I would ask the teachers to do is do that on the first day of school with your students as an icebreaker. Because almost every teacher, at least in the lower grades for sure, you have your birthday tree, right? You put that birthday tree up and everybody's picture goes on what their birthdays are. Had the kids made a birthday card. And then they would keep it in their classroom when it was someone's birthday. They got to go pull out of the stack of the birthday cards that someone in their class had made for them. Again, that's a way to take it from teachers and also to students. And then, this is the even fun part, and I have a picture. Michael would take the birthdays every month, and I would get them together, and they had to come with their card, and we would have a birthday party. Now, on this one, you'll notice there are pretend people at the table because we only had one birthday that month. But you know what? She was still just as happy. She was still just as celebratory. And can I say kudos to my teaching assistants? We figured out she was only going to be the only one. And I don't remember how that happened, but she was going to be the only one. So they did a wonderful job getting the make-believe people sitting at the chairs for her birthday. Isn't that awesome? So again, teachers, you do it, and I do it, and the teachers love it. And then we passed it down to the students. Turns out the students loved it, and then they got to have cupcakes and a birthday celebration, and then we went healthy food. So maybe they got a bread muffin, but we might have snuck in a cupcake or two, just saying. Miss Neilfar, I think she was a part of one of my schools that did that. So that was big fun for us. Again, costs nothing except craft. Yes, it costs nothing except paper, but it builds such an idea of teamwork. It builds such an idea of, you know, we're celebrating you today, but someone made this card for you way back in the very first week of induction. So that's one little sneaky activity I do that costs no money. Now, this next one I do is called the We Are Mission Agreement. Now, you see a block A in front of you. So that's for me. I'm at American Gulf School, so we call that AGS. So I'll take a very large poster board. Everyone knows what poster board is. And we'll cut or we'll make an A block out of it. And then what I do is, depending upon the number of teachers that I have, so like when we do this next week, I don't think any of my people are on here. Okay, I'm safe. I'll take that A, and let's say I have 60 teachers, 60. I'll cut that A into 60 different pieces, different shapes, all these things, right? Now, you have to put the shapes back on and trace it so we know where the shapes go. Then I take my other poster board that's just plain poster board. I scroll out the A. We put the squiggly lines on where all the pieces go like it's a puzzle. And then I hide it. And then I give everyone one of those little pieces. And I say, we are American Gulf School. What will your contribution be this year? And I make them write I will statement. I will, whatever that is, be inclusive with my students. I will learn to be better at differentiating for my SEN kids. I will this or I will that. And I let them do it all on their own. And then when they're finished, they come to and find their puzzle piece. Oh, they have to put their name on the back. And then they have to sign it. And then they take and they go find their little puzzle piece. and we glue stick it on. And then when you're finished, you have this capital A with everybody's statement on it that you can see, but nobody knows whose it is because their names are on the back. And then about once a month, I'll pull it out. Maybe sometimes it's one of my meetings. Maybe I see my staff needs a little pick me up. I'll pull it out and I'll say, this is what we're going to do today. Everybody find a partner. Tell your partner how you've done your statement. And now all of a sudden, everybody has that flashback and that feedback to, I was excited on that day. I was so excited to write that down. You know what? I did this week. Or, I really started out good in the first week in the first two, but I really let that slide. You know what? I'm going to do better at that in October. And then middle October, half-term break, you got that little slide dropping down. You pull your capital A back out. And then what I'll do is at the beginning of term 2. So we're like AGS, American Gulf School. At term 2, guess what I do? I make a G. And we do the same thing at the beginning of term 2. And that G is my term 2, and it has to be different from term 1. So then you have a whole new set of buy-in. You have a whole new set of goals for your teachers. And you have a whole new set of I remembers. So that's just, and then for term 3, we'll do an S, then I have AGS. And then at the end, if I'm in the school long enough, I'll put that in a large poster size, and that goes in our reception. And then from year to year, it stays up. So I started that in Texas. And by the way, in my school, the vice principal took over for me, and he stayed for like 6 years. He kept doing it. And then someone took over for him. I didn't know the guy because he came way after me. He continued. So they have now like 14 years of PHS, were our initials, of PHSs, of impact statements from teachers. It costs nothing but a poster board and some glue stick. Inexpensive way to keep motivation through every term. I invite you to try it. I've done it in a lot of places, and it's a great motivation tool. And it just keeps teachers buying in to their own areas and their own criteria of what they've set for themselves. Okay, let's do one more. I think we're right on time. All right, I'm 1 minute ahead. The policy and procedure scavenger hunt. How many of you either have been that leader, or how many of you have been that person where you have to sit through the person up there talking about policies, and those policies are like 10 slides long, and you got to go through 5 policies. You got the HR policy, you got the teacher handbook, you got the fire and safety policy, you've got the SEN policy, and so on and so on. And you are bored out of your mind. So one of the things I did in one of my schools where I was a consultant is they were saying, look, we've got having a hard time this whole policy procedure thing, because they were fairly new. So they were kind of writing them and changing them. So what we did was, and I'm going to do it in my school next week, is we came up with the policy and procedure scavenger hunt. And so my well-being coordinator, because it's also a team building thing. So my well-being coordinator is creating a QR code scavenger hunt for each policy. We're going to put it throughout the whole school, right? So one of the policies is like, it might be health and safety. That's going to be in the gym or the sports hall, right? And then we might do SEN. They're going to put that in the inclusion office, the director of inclusion office, the inclusion policy. And then we've got a child safety policy. We're going to put that, our medical safety, in the clinic. And so there's going to be, in the QR code, there'll be scavenger hunt type statements. I can be found here. One of my statements in my policy is, and then they have to think about where that is, and then they'll go, right? And then they'll get there, and then there's another QR code right below the policy, and there's 3 questions they have to ask in their Google, and they only take an iPad, one iPad, and 3 people on a team, or 4 people if you're a big school, and they'll go to the clinic, and they'll click the QR code. They have to answer their questions, 1, 2, 3, click. And once you click, then it gives you the next policy to go find in the next set. And so that's a good way to take 2 hours of policies and procedures that are just blowing your mind. You still get to share your policies and procedures. You get the main 3 questions you want out of it anyway, right? And then they get to have a little fun, do some teamwork, go around the school in different places. I think we've got a sports hall clinic, STEM lab, canteen, KG, the 3 security gates. So this is the primary security gate. This is the secondary, that's the KG and the main. And at each place, there's a policy on what's the attendance policy, what's the tardy policy, etc. So that's another little easy, sneaky way to, and inexpensive even, to take something in induction that's boring. But what you can also do is, and we do it, we will do it in this school, and I did it in that school as well. You have to revisit it. And so, yes, they answered their questions. Yes, they got to see all the policies. And then we just made it a point that when it was coming up time, let's say for the December assessments or the December exams, I would pull up that QR code for the scavenger hunt. And I'm say, all right, everybody get your phones or your whatever out, click it. And then the clue would come up for that. And they would say, oh, that's the assessment policy. And I was like, exactly right. What do you think we're going to talk about? Oh, the assessment policy. And then I would pull up the assessment policy. I would point out the 2 or 3 things important that they needed to remember as teachers, like invigilation and the rules of that, being on time, and then how to deal with students that are either late or cheating. Boom, that's all I need from you. They will remember it because it gave them a real world example of the scavenger hunt. And they had that to fall back on. They go, oh yeah, that's a scavenger hunt. And now all of a sudden it's not a boring 3 slides thing. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. I want to end with that slide of these 3 things. You've got to be able to be consistent in whatever you decide to do. Like you can't start the birthday card thing and then not do it. You can't start the A thing or the block A or the block G or the block S and not pull it out once a month or a couple of times a term. It's got to be consistent, right? The teamwork side, the top right-hand side, it has to be a part of collaboration and team construction. And that's where that block AGS I always find is fun. The teamwork of making whatever. And then finally, let them know, tell them. Now, you're making these birthday cards for a reason. It is to celebrate people's birthdays, and we're going to celebrate them in unique ways. I won't tell you the secret until someone has a birthday, but at least they know the expectation. This A is for what you will contribute. We are AGS. Or like you said, the scavenger hunt, it's important we go over the policies, blah, blah, blah. So you got to set the expectations early as well. I am to the Q&A point, I think. Yeah, I am to the Q&A point. In your question and answer, any questions that you have, any thoughts that you have, any ideas that you have, anything you want to ask me, any things you want to know? So Ms. Pallavi says, you know, activities like that consume a lot of time. And the answer is yes, they do. But what you have to do as the leader is you've got to decide, is that time going to be valuable and useful to you to keep that transition, to keep that motivation, to keep up that energy level in your school? I don't do, actually, I will do all of them in this school because they need it. But I don't necessarily do that every time, everywhere, all the places, right? It's kind of up to you. You have to decide as the leader of that school with your leaders, not just up to you, but with your team. All right, for this policy and procedure, we were going to take 2 hours anyway, because we have to go through all the policies and procedures at the beginning. So for me, that 2 hours is worth it, knowing that I can come back in December and do the assessment policy. So as your team, you have to decide, is that time worth it? We went through next week's schedule. We're a Sharjah school, so we don't get the Friday. So we had to go through, and I gave them all the ideas that I really wanted to do with the team. And then we had to start thinking, all right, this is going to take about 30 minutes, but remember, we need to do this. All right, don't forget marketing needs the bios and the professional photos. And so, yes, it takes a little time. In terms of the students, everything I've told you other than the birthday, I do with teachers, not for your students. This is for your teachers as a leader. I want to make sure that I get that, right? And there was a comment from Miss Renew. The birthday one we tied over into students. But for the most part, everything I gave you was specific to teachers and that starting that year. But remember, I started with a quote, and the quote was, it's the transition that causes you problem. And the transition is generally because we lose motivation along that term or along that midterm or along that school year. So I hope that clears that up. George says, any chance to know what is the best way to start on the first day with teachers? You know, George, I think that's a great question. If you have the perfect answer, tell me in private. We'll write a book and we'll make a lot of money together. No, I joke just a bit. What I would say to that from my point of view is it depends on my teachers. If I have, let's say, and I will know the data of my teachers, you know, and I've actually cheated with this group. I gave them a Cat 4 assessment, the beginning or the trial assessment. So I have Cat 4 data on all my teachers that will start next week. And so if I see a big nonverbal group or a big spatial group, I would start with something spatial and something kinesthetic. It so happens that I have a very big nonverbal and kinesthetic. So I might start with the birthday cards, or if they are verbal, which means they're okay to listen, I might start with a few more slides where it's me talking, but not a lot. And then give, you know, the opportunities to do different things. I treat it, George, just like a classroom. I take the data and I structure my day. Throughout that day, no matter if it's me or the vice principal leading or the head of KG leading or the head of primary leading or the head of secondary or the well-being, we're going to do something spatial. We're going to do something quantitative. We're going to do something nonverbal. We're going to do something verbal. And then our hope is it fits into the information that we need to give. So I don't treat it too much different than a classroom. I hope that answered your question. One comment I have here that was mentioned, it depends on the school culture. That's a great way to identify what to do. If you have a very, let's say, heavy Emirati population, that means a lot of your teaching methodologies, teaching strategies, teaching techniques are geared toward that culture of student. And so how you create and what time you might spend, I think that's a great comment. If your culture is very big expat and you've got 27 or 30 nationalities, both as teachers and as students, you've got to think about those different types of techniques and strategies that you want to use to model with them or teach them. These are just three that I do pretty consistently, and I know they work well because it makes impact. And I'll be honest, I wasn't going to put the photo up until, well, I won't say his name because I don't have permission to do that, until he sent me a message on LinkedIn and say, hey, just want you to know I did this with my staff. So I think that's one of the reasons I put that up. There's another one that I do is in induction. We have at least one silly day. I think we have a crazy sock day during induction. I've done crazy hat day during induction. And on the hat day I did induction, I made a I put them in teams of 2, and they had to make identical hats. So instead of just making your own hat and have a crazy hat, they still had to be crazy, but they had to be identical. So that's a way to collaborate, teamwork, those kind of things. I've done that. There's been some other ones. So those are just some other ideas that doesn't really cost a lot of money. And we do them in. So like I went to and bought a bunch of caps and hats at, I don't remember what it's called, Daiso, I think, here in the UAE. Any more Q&As? I want to be very mindful of your time. I've got one more slide that I need to share. Any other thoughts? All right, I think I'll leave it at that. I hope this was helpful just to give you an idea. My experiences in the transition and keeping motivations throughout the school year, because that's where I think things that you want to change and things that you want to improve with your school drop, is because you need to find ways to continue those motivations and continue the consistency, as you see here, continue the teamwork, and continue to revisit those expectations from time to time. I would be remiss if I did not mention the upcoming International Teacher Olympiad, the ITO as we call it. Your school is welcome to register as a school leader. I think some of your schools actually participated in this last year. Thank you very much. I know a lot of my teachers that weren't necessarily affiliated with a school have done this. It really does a good job assessing your teachers and giving you data as a school leader. It also gives you an idea of where they are to teach students of 2023. As they say, it's 21st century ready, but we're already 23 years in, right? And it is such a minute, minimal cost. I can't even begin to tell you how small it is. So if you're very much interested, we would love to have you. Click on register your school. You get quite a bit of information as your teacher cohort that participates. But the teachers also get personal information that they can use. I'll give you one thing that we did in one of my schools that did ITO last year. What we did is we did the strength to stronger term. And what they did is they took the teachers that participated, they took their strength from their individual teacher ITO report. And we did just some small little peer support, peer strategy, peer technique to help take that strength and make it stronger. And so it doesn't always have to be what's bad or what needs improvement. So that was just a little thing that I did. I think in that school, maybe there were 15 or 16 teachers that participated. Just a small little thing that I taught. And what I did in that school is I was teaching the vice principal in charge of curriculum how to take data and take teacher strength and make them stronger, not just focus on areas of improvement. So please sign yourself up. Thank you, Ms. Pragati, for putting that in the chat. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, have a very nice day. For those of you who are leading, good luck next week if you're starting next week in your inductions. For those of you who are continuing, there's nothing that says you can't try some of these things you learned today as you do meetings along the way. So ladies and gentlemen, nice to see you all. Good to see some fresh, at least fresh names. Nobody turned, or a few of you turned your cameras on. So good to see everyone. And please keep in touch with me. Let me know how things are going. Ladies and gentlemen, happy Thursday.